We have two ex-A4 pilots, First Officer Barry Evans and First Officer Peter Greenfield. And Barry, what's it like to fly the Skyhawk?
A very interesting aeroplane to fly, actually. The aeroplane was designed around the pilot's needs, very small cockpit. The aeroplane was very responsive, particularly in roll. It had a, compared to modern aeroplanes, a slow acceleration rate, but very comfortable, very easy to get used to.
Well, what's your first landing on a carrier like?
It's a fair few years ago now, but very exhilarating, very satisfying aeroplane to put on the deck. The aeroplane had a feel about it that you knew you were around about the on-speed. To finesse the actual exact speed took a little bit of practice, but the aeroplane had a definite feel about it when you were in the groove.
Lining up on the carrier, we hear the words, "call the ball." What exactly is the ball?
Well, the ball, or the meatball, was a reflected image from a mirror that, if you've any knowledge at all with aeroplanes, gave you a glide slope. It was gyro-stabilised to within certain limits, but the picture, the presentation you got was an orange ball on a mirror that was between green lights either side that formed one single line. If the ball was above the green line, you were high on the slope, and if it was low, you were below the slope. If you went very low, I'm told it went red.
What was involved in landing on the carrier for the first time?
Before we actually saw the carrier for the first time, we had to do something like 50 practice landings on a dummy deck marked out in the runway at Narra. Most of those were done at night using the little roadside warning lights. We call them limpet lights. They marked out the dummy deck, and we did maybe 6 of those at a session. So it took a whole week's worth of flying to get ready to go to sea for your first time. And then as a new guy, you were paired up with an experienced pilot like Barry, for instance, and the pair of you would go out to the ship. You'd get 2 passes at the deck, hook up, and if the LSO reckoned you're okay, you'd just say hook down, and before you knew it, your next pass you're trapped on board. So it happened pretty quickly, and you were sort of worked into it reasonably well. The actual experience of the very first pass at the deck was pretty scary because, geez, that's a small ship and it's not getting any bigger. That was my impression anyway.
The psychology I think they used on your first trap was that you were on the ship and off the ship before you had a chance to sort of dwell on it. They encouraged you basically to do 2 passes. They did a quick assessment on the ship. If they thought you were safe, then they told you to hook down. That tended to make the aeroplane more unstable as soon as you lowered the hook for the first time, because the control inputs seemed to be bigger and the aeroplane never seemed to do what you wanted it to do the first pass. But as soon as you trapped the first time, everything turned to, I won't use the word that I used at the time, but everything turned into a rather large flurry. They finally would taxi you onto the catapult and fire you off. So the memory I have of basically was I was on and off the ship before it all actually happened, and you were turning downwind for the next pass, so you didn't have a chance to sort of get all hyped up over it. You were just ready and prepared for your next pass, and it's pretty good too. You don't get a chance to let the adrenaline take over. The system they used had to work because you're up on your own. You never went to the ship in a 2-seat aeroplane. It was always in a single-seat aeroplane. So your first pass was your own.
The first hook-down pass, as Barry said, you trapped, and they were ready for it. They knew you were a new guy, and there was a horde of plane pushers came out, and they just were ready in case you got trapped in the wires.
Shit in the wire.
Well, can't say that.
That's the term I used.
And if you got hung up there, and they'd push you back, in the meantime, you're just reacting like an automaton. You'd done it so often before in your dreams or practice. And as Barry said, within 3 minutes you'd trapped, taxied forward, loaded on the cat and gone off again, and you woke up and you're downwind for your next pass. It was a good system. I don't really remember my first trap. It's the second one, I guess.
I think you just remember the session as a whole. You don't remember the individual trap. You know that you came back highly elated and proud of yourself that the fact that you managed to do what you set out to do. Not that anyone was ever very surprised, because you were so well trained and so prepared for it.